thousandths of a second shutter speed. And here we go. Click, click, click. Hello everyone, this is Taka from bigheadtaco.com, and I'm coming to you here from my home studio, aka my garage. You'll hear park-like noises coming from that direction there. I'm here to do my review of the new Leica M10. Now there's been a lot of excitement, a lot of talk about this camera since January, and all the big boys of YouTube have had a chance to play with it, although a lot of it was pre-production and a lot of it was done at the events. I've had this camera for just under 2 weeks. I've shot with it for about on 5 or 6 various outings in a total of probably 30-40 hours of shooting, and I had a chance to really take a good look at these files, and so far I would say that this is the best M body that I've tested. And one might say, well, shouldn't the newest cameras always be the best? No, because sometimes brands can make mistakes with certain cameras. So it's not just about the image quality, but just the overall implementation of the new M10 versus the previous M240 based body sensor and processor. So there was the M262, the MD, they're all based still on the M240. And so let's dig into this review and let's see how this new M10 stacks up with the other M cameras. All right, so the Leica M10, let's start with the basics, right? It is, at this time, I just checked the pricing against B&H. I kind of use that as a standard for pricing in North America in US dollars. It is $6,600 US for the body alone. And the lens I happen to have on here is the 35mm f1.4 Summilux, which is their premium, well, yeah, it is their premium 35mm lens, and this lens is $5,000 US, but you can spend a lot less, including having the 35mm f2.4, and that lens is $2,000 US, or you can get any of the Voigtlander Zeiss lenses, or kind of like vintage lenses on here, so you don't need to spend that much, but the body alone is $6,600 US. And kind of to start this whole review off, it is good to note that if you are not interested in Leica, then like for instance, you say you already shoot Sony, you already shoot Fujifilm, you already shoot other brands, there's almost no way you're going to switch over to the Leica M system because of the M10, because in terms of price performance, the Sony is probably the best. The A7R Mark II is $2,900, and that has insane autofocus, it has insane video capabilities, it has insane high ISO performance. It'll outperform this camera for sure. And so in terms of price advantage, if you have Leica lenses, there's a lot of guys with A7s adapted with M lenses on there, and if you're happy with that, that's great, because this is like 2 A7R Mark II's pricing. And as well, if you already shoot Fujifilm, I have the X Pro 2 here, which it often kind of gets compared to, because the X Pro 2 does have a optical rangefinder type viewfinder in here, but it's in hybrid, so it also has an EVF. And same thing, this here, the X Pro 2 is probably around, I should have checked, but probably around $1,600 to $1,700 US, and bundled with the 23 f2 or the 35 f2, I forgot which lens it gets bundled with, but when you bundle it with the lens, I mean, you're still at around $2,000, just over $2,000. So again, $6,500 body only, and like $2,100 body and lens. So, you know, these are definitely not, this is in a class of its own. Similar to cars, if you're trying to buy a Bentley or a Rolls Royce, you're not looking at Lexus, you're not looking at Mercedes-Benz or BMW. You're definitely going for a premium camera. Optically, there are unique characteristics to Leicas that allow people to really pursue this brand. But if you want to take great pictures, man alive, I take great pictures with my iPhone 6S. And so you don't need this camera to take fantastic pictures. But for those of you that are into the Leica system, the M system, you have legacy lenses, you have M bodies, film bodies, you have the M240, you have the M9, whatever. This video is for you guys. And so far, in terms of price performance, from what I can see right now on B&H, it's still the same price or a little bit more expensive. I think the M240 is $6,500 US on B&H, and this is $6,600. So there's only $100 difference. That I think will change soon And so for $100 more, yeah, I would say get the M10. So let's go over some of the main specs that make this M10 sort of an evolutionary step up from the M240. So if you can kind of start with the Leica digital M body, you started with the M8. So that was that generation. It was a cropped sensor, not a full frame 35mm sensor yet. And then the M9 came along, and so that was a kind of an evolutionary leap, or a revolutionary leap really, because it went to the full frame sensor. And from the M9 it went to the M240, and now from the M240 there was that funny SL, but that definitely was a different system because it uses a different mount. It did not have a rangefinder, viewfinder. It was a electronic viewfinder, so that was a little bit of a side point, as well as the Leica Q, and now we have the M10. So this is the newest M body with the optical viewfinder built on here. And so what you get with this is a new sensor. Now this sensor is not the same sensor that's in the SL or the Leica Q or the M240. It's a different sensor, although it does share the Maestro II processor that is in the, I think it's in the S, SL, and the Leica Q, but ISO performance. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but definitely improved ISO performance. And speaking of ISO, like the film Leicas, like the MA and the MP, and the older film Leicas like the M3, M2, it has where you would have the film rewind knob, you actually have an ISO dial in here, and that's fantastic. That's something that Leica has been missing for a long time. They always had a dedicated ISO button here, but you know, because you have your shutter speeds up here and you have your aperture here and you're focusing here, it is nice to have an actual analog ISO dial. And so it's and it fits within their ideology of form. For me, I say form over function, because if this was more functional, it definitely would look more like a DSLR. But this is, you know, this is a very beautiful camera, and people that know very little about photography, who don't even know about Leica, as soon as they see this, they immediately, I've had a lot of people say, whoa, that's a beautiful camera, what is that? And so it's definitely a very fantastic, beautiful looking camera. And this sort of fits within their philosophy of, well, it looks like a film rewind knob here, so let's put it on there, but make it into an ISO dial. So that works within what Leica does. Now, it does have a larger buffer, and as you heard, you can do continuous shooting. They don't have the continuous shooting over here anymore, or this timer mode, so you do have to dig in to the menus and get continuous shooting. But Leica claims with that larger buffer you can shoot 100 continuous JPEGs at 5 frames per second, or you can shoot 36 RAW files, and that's in the full 14-bit depth. So that's pretty good for Leica. It's nothing to brag about if you're shooting DSLRs, but for something like this and mirrorless, and for Leica, considering you're manually focusing, to have that much that buffer that large, it's a big deal for Leica M shooters. One of the big things is the thinness of the M10. This camera is, I took pictures comparing the thickness of this against my old Minolta CLE, and it is basically the same thickness of that. And I've seen other videos, Leica's basically saying this is the same thickness as an M7, but an M7 is basically the same thickness, more or less, than comparing to like the M6, the MP, the MA. I have the X Pro 2 here. I took a picture of that as well. It's pretty much the same thickness. The X Pro 2 has a little bit of a hump here, and the EVF it sticks up that little rubber cap, but in general, it's about the same thickness and size, as you can see, as the X Pro 2. So for a Leica M, the M240 was kind of a thick camera. It just didn't, I mean, if you close your eyes and you had it in your hand, you can really sense that you had a digital M and not a film M. And so it's nice that they've gone thinner. One of the negatives of going thinner is the battery has also gotten smaller. So instead of the 1800 milliamp hour battery, it's gone down to a 1300 milliamp hour battery. But these cameras, if you're shooting with the optical viewfinder, I find that, and also you're not autofocusing as well, that the batteries last pretty much all day for me anyways, with these Leicas. And so it's not a huge deal. The viewfinder, kind of a big deal. Again, in the world of Sony or DSLRs, maybe it's not a big deal, but for Leica, when they play with the magnification and the viewfinder size, you know, it's kind of a big deal. The older the M240s, they all had the 0.68 times viewfinder, the magnification 0.68. Now this is 0.73, and what's allowed for that, part of it is because now that the body is thinner, the magnification can be allowed to be a little bit larger, and so when you look through, you can definitely tell you're seeing more. And also they've improved the eye relief, so if you wear glasses, you can definitely wear your glasses, you can focus easier, although it's still probably better if you're shooting with like a 50mm lens most of the time to get the diopter magnifiers that you can put on here. But this is a different threading, so you do have to buy new ones if you want to upgrade to the M10. So you got better eye relief, you have larger magnification, and you actually have a larger view. So overall, you know, because the way that most people shoot with these Leicas, I mean, this does have live view, but the way that most will shoot is through the rangefinder. I mean, that's kind of the beauty and the fun of manually focusing and sort of seeing those two images coming together. And so having that larger viewfinder, I mean, you could still, when you choose your frame lines from here, you could still see the 28mm. So you know, because it's larger, it doesn't mean then that you can put wider. It's still 28mm wide is the widest you can go. I'm pretty sure, because I have a 35, and here I can see the 50, and then the 75, yeah, and then I can see the full 28. So you're not, because the magnification's more, but because it's larger, it's still basically, you're getting the same sort of frame lines in terms of the ratio. It's still very similar, but you're just getting more of it, if that makes sense. Quieter shutter. So I have this manually focus, so you're just gonna have to, so that's it definitely sounds different. It's more muffled. The M240 was noisy. It didn't sound very good, and it was noisy. This is quieter, although I do wish that they would have put electronic shutter in here, which they didn't. I think maybe they could add it perhaps in the future, but right now it's just that. But it's a nice sound. Everyone that's played with it all commented that it has a nice muffled sound, and I like it as well. There's the new menus. There's even a favorites menus mode, which is fantastic. So you could put all your favorite settings that you tend to change, put it in that favorites, and that's all on the top. And then on the bottom, it says the main menu, and that basically has all your menu items. And so that's fantastic. Although I don't think it would be anti-M like if they made this a touchscreen perhaps, and maybe made it more iconic and actually have, like the Leica T and the TL, have little icons as your quick menu. So that's just a suggestion for Leica if they can do that. ISO. So other than the increase in the ISO, I mean, having the ISO dial here, there's actually an increase in ISO sensitivity. So it starts at ISO 100, it's not push or pull, so 100, and it goes up to 50,000. And I've heard people say that even ISO 25,000 looks fantastic. I've tested up to 12,800. It's not bad, but I think Leica was smart in putting basically on here the 6400, and that's probably where I would max out unless I really had to. And so much wider ISO range, about a 2-stop improvement, and I could see it. That is, to me, probably one of the biggest news updates on the M10 is the ISO performance. Because you know, the Leica M bodies have never really been that, especially the M9, right? I mean, most guys shot at 800, most would never go above 1600. The M240, same thing, you wouldn't really go over 3200. If you had to, you would, but 3200 is probably the max you would shoot, especially if you're trying to get critical like photography done. But this one, 6400 comfortably, even in daylight. And I'll post some pictures of my shots I've shot at 6400, 3200, 1600. Fantastic. I wouldn't even hesitate going to 12,800, although I didn't take any sample images that fast because I just really didn't need to reach that type of ISO speed. But 6400, no problem, fantastic. There is Wi-Fi control, which includes view, live view, control, as well as transfer. You can even transfer DNG files. I downloaded the app. I couldn't make it connect. It's not as intuitive as Canon or Fujifilm. I've seen guys do it. I just didn't waste my time doing it. But from what I can see, what other reviewers have done, it looks fantastic. And so if you are serious about shooting with this and then transferring your images and then working on the DNG files on your tablet or on your iPhone or your smartphone, then go ahead. But for me, I like shooting DNG RAW in camera only. And then when I get home, I just basically put it into my computer, and then I work on the raw files in Lightroom or Photoshop. And that's my workflow. So I didn't really test that DNG to my iPad or anything like that. But that's there for those that want it. And I think it is a first for a Leica M body. In terms of color, it comes in two colors. It's chrome only, okay, so there's no black paint. So it's either black chrome, which this is what this is. So that's like the Leica MA, black chrome. It's like a matte black color, which I prefer over black paint, which Leica MP is black paint. And it comes in silver chrome. So silver chrome looks handsome, it looks more film-like to me, and the black chrome is more stealth-like. So I prefer the black chrome. For those of you who want black paint, then you just have to go and get it painted somewhere else. So that's the main specs of this camera. In terms of shooting experience, as I mentioned, I've gone out 5 or 6 times. You know, just like when I haven't shot with a Leica. So the last Leica M body I shot with was in Hong Kong back in August, September of 2016. So it's been almost 6 months. So I haven't shot with one of these in terms of for a review. I have lots of friends that have Leica M film and digital bodies, but the first thing is I wanted to wind the film. It does when you're shooting. You know, when you're focusing rangefinder and you're focusing manually and you're setting everything manually, it does feel like you're shooting film. So it still has that M experience for those of you that like shooting with Leica M's. And it's a very hard experience to explain for those of you or those of us that are used to DSLRs or mirrorless and everything is autofocus, auto ISO. I mean, this does have auto ISO, but you're used to everything being done for you. Sometimes there's a bit of a scariness in shooting like this, or even kind of people think you're dumb to shoot with this. It's kind of like, why would you shoot manually? Why would you shoot through an optical viewfinder? Why are you paying so much to make you do everything? I think it's just because you don't get it, or a lot of times it's just a matter of like it's like driving an automatic car and all of a sudden you drive with the stick. Well, I drive stick all the time. I prefer it. There's people that just have grew up driving automatic cars, and I think there's a bit of a fear of driving stick, and then so they kind of make fun of it. So I think it's fantastic to have full control over your exposure, full control over your ISO, full control over what you're focusing on. Now that does mean that you shoot a little bit slower, but as you can see my images, some images are shot at wide open at f1.4, some, you know, still f2, f2.8, often on the street when you want depth. I'm doing it with an autofocus camera anyways, but I'm shooting at f8, f16, f11, and so I just know how to control this type of camera, and it does not hinder me from getting most of the type of pictures that I want. There are some instances where fast AF would have helped, but in general, because I've never relied on my autofocus, that I've relied on my eyes and my quick intuition, that I didn't miss any shots, and often I find that I get better shots when I shoot with the Leica M because that I'm so used to shooting in this style. So let's talk about cons. Not huge cons, but one of them is this here. Now when the camera is off, the little red light, it's not a light, it's the little red tab means off, but look that it's actually off center like this, right? This is on when it's straight, and that little red tab. When I received this from Leica, it was actually in the on position because whoever shipped it, they assumed that this was probably the off, but this actually is on. So I find that it's a bit odd. I had to get used to that this is off and this is on. And also there is no other position. I wish they did have the other, I think it was continuous and timer. I wish they still kept, you know, like out of all the Leica M's, this has probably the largest buffer, and you know, you can shoot 100 JPEGs, 36 RAW. This is the one M that should have the continuous because there's decent continuous shooting. And with the Leicas, one of the things that sometimes you want to use continuous for is that if you're using a Noctilux and you're trying to focus, often what you do is you set the focus at a certain distance. So let's just say either at minimum focus, which is 0.7 on this Summilux 35mm lens. And what you're doing is you're kind of continuous shooting and you're shifting a little bit, you're moving a little bit, trying to make sure that you're getting basically your focus bracketing. And also you can bracket by changing aperture, but really with Leicas it's either focus bracketing or the subject is constantly changing. So let's say it's children or you're doing portraiture, and as their expressions slightly change, well, I wish this still had kept that continuous. So for me, I guess it makes sense if they could just put maybe off, single, and continuous, or some kind of a special mode. I think that would be nice. No electronic shutter. Even though this is quiet, it's still not as quiet as shooting with a mirrorless camera like the Fujifilm. And all of the Fujifilms have an electronic shutter. And so it would be nice those times where, let's just say it's very, very quiet like a movie set and you need to be as quiet as possible. It'd be nice that you had electronic shutter in here. So Leica electronic shutter, I think that'd be important. People are bragging about the fact that this has no video. And I always felt, well, if it has a feature in there, even if most don't use it, the sensor probably could do video. So why not just leave it in? I don't think it's a feature when they remove something. The Leica MD without a screen is different because that was designed, there's no JPEGs, there was no need to look at it. They set it up so that you don't have to scroll through the menus, pick your, your JPEG size, do your white balance. That Leica MD was designed to like, look, you just turn it on and you shoot. This camera here, there's no video, and I think most don't shoot with it, but there's a fella in Vancouver, Ryan Ma, from Black Rhino Creative. He actually uses the M240 to shoot video, and check out, the Leica did a little video of him, and he explains why he likes shooting with Leica to shoot videos, because it's small and compact, and he loves the glass. He loves Leica M glass, and so why not put video in here? So Leica, I don't think you can be hurting anyone if you put video in here. I mean, you have live view here anyways, and so why not put video? So I think you should put video back. The ISO dial, I'm glad that it's here, but I don't like the way that it's implemented, where you have to kind of, it actually snaps up, and it kind of feels like, to me it feels cheap actually. It makes like a high-pitched kind of a clicking sound. Can you hear that? You can hear that. Over time, I have a feeling this might, I'm not sure if it'll break, but I wish what it was is it didn't come up, and maybe there was just a lock button here, just like on the Fujifilm, on the X-T2 and the GFX. So I have a GFX here, Fujifilm GFX. This has an ISO dial here as well, and you press that button and now it's locked in, and you depress it and now you can move it. So I wish Leica would have done that on here. I mean, I'm glad it's here. I'm not complaining. I'm happy that it's here, but a little locking button in the middle and not having to pop this up, I think that's probably better, because I don't know, this pull up, I don't know, maybe it's, yeah, I think it's better to just keep it down and a little button in the middle. Bottom plate, this some Leica guys might not like, but this bottom plate, for those of you who don't know, the film Leicas, I met a guy who never played with a digital Leica body before, and he just kind of was blown away that the way it opens up just like a film Leica. So, you have this bottom brass plate, and then now you have the battery and your card slot here. A lot of the amateur cameras on mirrorless, like so for instance the Fujifilm X Pro 2, the X-T2 and the GFX all have a side loading card slot, and it's a dual card slot, and the battery's on the bottom, but it's off-centered from the plates here. So if you have a tripod quick release plate, you can still access the batteries from the bottom here. Now this Leica M, everything's still in the bottom here. Now, in terms of distance, you might still be able to get away with a tripod plate, but you still have to take this, actually no you can't, because what you have to do is this whole thing comes off, right? So if you have this on a tripod, you want to change batteries, the whole thing has to come off. You're gonna remove the bottom plate, take out the battery or the memory card. That's where I kind of said Leica's more form than function, because this is not functional. This is just a sort of a nod to their film heritage. It's kind of cool, Leica, but I feel that if you put a nice slick, and you've had Audi design, like the Leica T and the TL, it's an Audi design body. Talk to a design company, talk to Apple, talk to Johnny Ive. A way to put a card slot in the side that will be well integrated, and you can have other, like HDMI, USB connection on the sides, and still have that form. Because going to the bottom plate, removing even this, this is easy to drop, especially if you're kind of on a boat or you're in a car or you're running and you're just quickly trying to change a battery on the fly. You need two hands to do this, right? And so, yeah, it's neat. Form-wise, it's beautiful, but it's kind of antiquated. You know, maybe think of having a card slot on the side. So those are the only cons that I have. Going back a little bit about shooting experience, I find some people might wonder why, you know, like, is it good to have live view? I think it's good to have live view because sometimes when you start off shooting, you want a quick reference exposure. Now inside the viewfinder, you have the little arrows telling you which way the exposure is, either you're over or under, but you don't often know how much over or how much under you are. So quickly hitting live view, quickly being able to see what's happening, and then judging your exposure, and then you can quickly adjust. There is a feature here where for a custom feature, this becomes your exposure compensation dial here. So if you're shooting aperture priority, which I often do, so you go to A mode, and you can quickly adjust your aperture, your exposure compensation right here, right away. It's nice to immediately see how the center weighted average, or you can go multi-metering, but I like center weighted, which, as you can see here, this multi-colored shutter curtain, underneath there is an actual photosensor diode. I'm not sure what it's called, but it's aimed up against that. So as the image through the lens is projected onto the light hits that shutter curtain, that gives the camera a nice way of figuring out what the exposure should be. Now when you go into live view, that all moves out of the way, right? The shutter moves out of the way and you're actually getting a live view and you get to see exactly what you're gonna get. But that does waste more batteries in live view. And after a while, if you are used to shooting center weighted average, shooting with film as well as the other Leica M bodies, you get used to it, and I get used to it. But having that live view is a nice way of quickly seeing how, especially if it's tricky lighting, seeing how the camera is reading the scene. So live view, see how it's reading the scene, and then quickly get your reference, figure out, okay, so I'm gonna probably shoot at ISO 1600 because I wanna shoot at f8 and I'm doing street photography. I'm gonna zone focus to around 8 feet because based on the lens you're shooting. And so you get a good idea, and then what you do is turn off the live view, and then you go back to shooting with your optical viewfinder. So that, I'm actually glad that it's there. And if you're shooting with the Noctilux 50mm or you're shooting with longer lenses, it is nice to have live view, and there is focus peaking as well as clipping for highlights and for shadows. So for those things, I know the M262 doesn't have it, and there's guys like Matt Day, hey Matt, he loves that it doesn't have that. It keeps your shooting style simple, and that's fantastic. But for a backup, I actually found that I use that more often than I thought I would, and it's nice that it's a dedicated button and not having to dig through menus. So again, quick reference, see what you're getting, set up the way you want to set up, and then turn it off, and then you just keep on shooting. So that was my shooting experience with that live view. I'm not, and also, sorry, as you're shooting, another mode, it's not really mentioned, but you press that middle mode, and I like that because it gives you all your basic, what's happening. It gives you what shutter speed the camera's choosing for you. It tells you how much battery life in percentage, as well as a bar, and as well how much space you have left in your card. And then it gives you all your other specs, what lens you have on there, what metering mode you're shooting at. You know, it tells me I'm on continuous and I'm in auto white balance. So it gives you all your It gives you all the main info settings that you want, and then you just turn it back off. So live view, quick check, turn it off. Info, quick check, turn it off. And you know what? That helps me shoot quicker as a photographer. So I found even with the M240, I was comfortable shooting with it. The MD, I'm comfortable shooting with it. The film Leica MA, it's film. I'm still comfortable shooting with this. This is a nice balance for a Leica M shooter to have what you need to shoot digital, but it's not overwhelming. You can add the EVF on here, but unless you're shooting a lot with the longer lenses, or let's say you have an M to R mount adapter and you're shooting with a 200mm f2 lens and you're shooting focus peaking and you want critical focus, yes, then get that EVF. But if not, I find that if you're shooting less than 75 or even less than 90mm, you don't need that EVF. Just go into live view if you need to, but you can pretty much focus most of the time correctly using the optical viewfinder. For accessories, there is a solid one-piece brass thumbs up, which I think is really important for those of you that like to shoot without a neck strap. Maybe you want to get a thumb grip as well, but there is a half case that has a decent grip. And with that half case, there is a little cover that you can, I think magnetically, you can pull it back if you need to access the screen. But then once you close it, I think magnetically it closes in. So I think that's kind of a neat half case with screen cover. As well as the holster case, which I think is really slick if you like using wrist straps. So basically it fits in this way. So the Leica T and the TL had that, and now there's one for the M10, and that's another cool accessory. It does come with a leather strap. I didn't bring it out with me. It's kind of it's not the short Asian tourist length that I like. It's a little bit longer, so it decently fits crossbody. And the rings are weird though. They're reverse. Most of the rings you turn in this way. Maybe it's a German thing, but you gotta spin it counterclockwise, which seems odd for me to put it on. But it does come with that, and that's it. I think that's all the main accessories that you can get with this camera. And I would probably even recommend a soft touch release on here because it is still a little bit shallow here, and there is a half press feature on here. So if you want to do half press exposure, I have it set on live view. I don't need to half press. It will always tell me what the live exposure is going to be. So there is a feature where you can access that as well by half pressing. So because of that, I think a soft touch release is great. So my final conclusion on the Leica M10. This is the newest of the latest generation. So as I mentioned, M8, M9, M240, the SL, kind of, but it's not really an M, and now the M10. So it's a fantastic new beginning. There's going to obviously be variants of the M10 coming in the future. Perhaps, a screenless version of this. Perhaps even a cheaper without the brass top plate. It might be aluminum to keep it lighter and drop the price a little bit. Maybe pull back some of the features perhaps, but still have the same sensor. That'd be fantastic. I did always mention that if Leica can make a poor man's version of this, so maybe even getting rid of the ISO dial, right? Just anything to keep the price down. So this is 6,600 US, maybe having a 4,000 US price version of this, but pull away enough features so that those that are buying the $6,600 M10, they don't feel they're being ripped off by paying that much more. So I think that would be a great thing, especially because there's a lot of Leica film shooters that will probably never move up to Leica digital because it's such a huge price leap. And so that's why a lot of guys are still looking for the M8 and the M9s, because it's probably the only thing that these guys can afford to buy when it comes to digital M. So a poor man's digital M body, I think, wouldn't destroy the market for the higher end bodies as long as they remove enough of the features to still make it worthwhile to move up to the M10 body. Back to the basics. A lot of people are saying back to the thinness. It seems so odd to talk about how thin this is, but for Leica shooters, it is all about how it feels in the hand and the shooting experience, and going thinner, being able to increase the magnification, enlarging your actual view here. All those are all subtle and little things, adding the ISO dial, but for shooting experience, that's what Leica is all about, and they've definitely improved that shooting experience. Improved ISO performance is fantastic. That's the main reason why, if I was a Leica M shooter, digital M shooter, that's the main reason why I would upgrade to this, is that higher ISO performance. It is still, I'm still mentioning this, it's still more form versus function, but it's still, the balance is pretty good. I just wish at least the memory card slot will come in from the side. Maybe have the battery on the bottom. I wouldn't even mind if they got rid of this whole bottom plate shenanigans and just have a proper battery compartment down here. So if you have this on a tripod and you want to take out the battery, you don't have to take everything off and remove it and put it in. I just think that's such a hassle. Sure, it's kind of cool that it's there, but only the Leica shooters they know it's there, and it doesn't add any function. It actually makes it more complicated. It's just a nice nod to the film era, and even this turn, it's only like, it's not even a quarter turn. Look at that. It's just, it's like going from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock. That's the entire turn to lock it in. So it even feels weird because film like us, you have to turn it quite a bit more. So bottom plate, guys. WR. wouldn't it be cool if there was, like, if you can figure out a way of making a WR body and a very select series of WR lenses, so a 35 WR, even if it's an f2 or even an f2.4 WR lens, 35 and 50, and having a WR body for those that love the Leica ecosystem but would love to take it out in the rain, because you know, more and more cameras, the X Pro 2 is WR, this lens here is WR, the entire GFX system for the Fujifilm digital medium format is all WR, including the lenses. So I think a WR M body is in order. I think that they should definitely do that. And finally, manual focus rangefinder. Is it still significant in today's world of autofocus? Yes, it is. The fact that the company still exists and they still make these bodies, definitely it's a premium product like Bentley or Rolls-Royce when it comes to cars, or even McLaren, or when it comes to clothing. You know, there's a lot of us that buy Uniqlo and Gap and H&M and Zara, and then those are those that buy couture and higher end Gucci and Chanel. I feel that there's definitely a need for a luxury market for photography. You know, it's not just luxury. The lenses are fantastic. It has a great history and legacy. Those that collect cameras, that love cameras, they love history and they love legacy. And you know, Leica is oozing with that. And that's something that, you know, Fujifilm probably does so well, is because they're kind of giving that legacy design, right? That old film, old school design, and that's one of the reasons why Fujifilm is so successful. Well, Leica's continued that legacy all the way through from 1953, 1954 with the original M3, and all the way through until now. They still make film Leica M bodies, the MA and the MP, and they still make new digital rangefinder M bodies using the same mount, using the same lenses. And so I think that's a great thing. Alright guys, that's it. That's my review of the Leica M10. I love it. It's a great camera. I'm glad. I wish I was like all the other YouTubers that were either invited to the New York event or the Germany event. But because I got to shoot with this for almost 2 weeks, got to shoot with it for quite a few days, and had a really good chance to play with this, I'm glad I waited. And for those of you that are in the Leica ecosystem, this is a fantastic upgrade. You will not be disappointed when you're shooting with this new Leica M10, and not M10 type anything. It's just straight out Leica M10. And so thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, go samurai, go ninja on the like button if you like videos like this. And as well, don't forget to tell your friends about this channel. I really want to grow this channel and be able to review other cameras and to be able to do more travel shows, but I can't do that without more views and more subscribers. So thank you so much for your support. Look for more reviews like this. Thanks for watching, and happy shooting. Ah, what a beautiful sound.